So here's one. This is from Sukrut, who says, as I started doing the emotion code and the body code on myself several times, I cleared a lot of emotions, psychic traumas, offensive energies, allergies, toxins, pathogens, etc. Now, even if I'm having a very small problem in my body, I just feel it from inside and I can't delay, but I have to get rid of it. In fact, earlier when I had many problems, I didn't really feel anything and was good in my own skin. I felt healthy, despite being exactly opposite in reality. Is this normal? Yes. Is there a way to keep myself from feeling ill with every imbalance? Well, here's what happens, okay? Most people are walking around in a state of fairly tremendous imbalance. Now they think that they feel okay, all right? Typically, when I was in practice, what I found was that when people would come in to see me who didn't have any symptoms of any kind, really, they were just coming in to, for some preventive work or to try to see where they were at. Typically, what people would say to me is, I had no idea how bad I was actually feeling, or I had no idea how much better I could actually feel. They thought they were feeling okay before. What happens is, you see, when you start getting rid of imbalances in the body, instead of kind of being in a numbed out sort of a state where you're just dragging around all these imbalances and maybe you don't have any full-blown symptoms of anything, but you're just living and existing and you think you're feeling okay, there's a big difference between uh, just not having any symptoms of anything and actually feeling really great, right? There's a big difference there. And so what happens is, you see, your subconscious mind, now when a small problem surfaces, okay, you're feeling it from the inside and you can't wait to get rid of it, right? And that's how it's supposed to be. That's how our bodies are supposed to function. We are supposed to be functioning at such an optimum state, at such an optimum level of function that if something goes wrong, we notice it right away, rather than allowing it to just fester and get worse and then 20 years later becoming cancerous or something like that. No, we want to find those things right away. And so what Sukrut here is describing is the process that the vast majority of people go through. When you start getting rid of all this garbage that you've been dragging around, you start to feel better and you start to notice things more. And yes, you may actually, when things surface and you've cleared out a lot of stuff, you may notice those things a little bit more. Okay. So anyway, you're in the process of healing, Sukrut, and that's okay. Is there a way to keep myself from feeling ill with every imbalance? Well, I think that as you continue to work and clear things, I think that that's going to happen less and less and less. I think that's what you're going to notice. Okay, Sherry says, fabulous. I love this work. Me too. Thanks, Sherry. Oh, here's a great one from Kvita. She says, can the cording be still there after a person has died? Great question. What do you guys think? And the answer, of course, is yes. Just because a person dies, there's no requirement, see, that they have a physical body for them to be corded, for example, to you. So a person can die and they can still be corded. So short answer, yes. And you clear that the same way. So Sandra says, with people who won't give permission, you can also pray that God will open them to it. Absolutely, yes. And wait for when they are ready. Yes, absolutely. Prayer works. And boy, it's certainly worked in my life. I mean, I have no idea where I would be without prayer, but there would be no body code without prayer. There would be no emotion code without prayer. I mean, that's where it's come from. And the best information that comes, the best information that we get in this world, I believe, comes from up above. And, we don't need to be so prideful that we can't recognize that or just refuse, like the little child that says, no, I'd rather just do it myself, leave me alone. We need to realize who we are and that we can connect with that higher power. And that's where the great stuff is. So I agree totally. Okay. All right, let's see here. And Huguette says, I'm having a hard time with the yes and no answer. Okay. Well, let me just mention a couple of quick things about muscle testing. We have a great webinar on our website. about muscle testing. And if you have the body code, you also have a bonus DVD about muscle testing. But a couple things about muscle testing really quickly, some really common mistakes that people make. Okay. First mistake is people use too much force. Okay. That's a common mistake. I made that mistake myself for 7 years. My fingers hurt. My fingers hurt for 7 years because I was so dumb that I didn't realize that I could use less force. How dumb is that, really? I was so dumb. But now I barely use any force at all. You want to experiment with using just almost no force at all. And instead, just try to sense that subtle change that's taking place in the body. Okay, it takes a little bit of practice. The other thing that I found that most people make the mistake of is they focus on their fingers, okay? Or in other words, they're focusing on the testing mechanism. So if you're testing another person, maybe you're focusing on their arm going down. But instead, what you need to do, focus on the question itself. And remember to apply love and gratitude liberally. Okay? So if any of you that can type, okay, if you can touch type and maybe you can type 40 words a minute or more than that, you know very well that your speed will go right into the toilet if you start looking at your fingers. Right? That's absolutely how it is. Same thing with muscle testing. If you're actually looking at your fingers, if you're focusing on what your fingers are doing as you're trying to get the test, it's not going to work very well. Instead, what you do is you allow your whole being to focus on the question at hand and allow your heart to be full of love for the person that you're working with, whoever it is, even if it's yourself, maybe especially if it's yourself. And also allow your heart to be full of gratitude. And it's really a fun state to be in, to be full of love and full of gratitude. This works. This is going to work. No problem. This is going to work. If that's where your focus is, then the test just happens. See, most people have one or both of these problems. These are common mistakes to make. Okay, try that. I think that'll help you. Okay, Sherry writes in. She says there is iosol iodine liquid that is excellent. That's IOSOL. I can write that down here too. And that's a liquid iodine that you can take. IOSOL. Okay. Yeah, everybody should really. You all should have iodine in your pantry. Test yourself periodically. See if you need to take some. And don't be surprised if you start seeing radiation on clients of yours if you haven't already, because it's really sad and kind of scary if you actually start looking. If you do a starfish die-off, go to Google and look that up, and there's all kinds of information about how the starfish are just melting in these tide pools all up and down the coast. Kind of crazy. Okay, here's one from Yvonne. Yvonne says, can I work on a boy of 13 years old by proxy if the mother is asking me without the son knowing it? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, because the mother is in charge of that child. Okay. And so as long as you got her permission, no problem. You're good to go. Okay, here's one from Katz. She says, I'm wondering if you've worked with people that have chronic Lyme's disease. Is there a common theme? What organs and systems do you target? Thanks. Well, yes, I have worked with Lyme's disease. The interesting thing about that, though, is that what I have learned, it's the same thing as when I used to work with all the people with chronic fatigue syndrome and people with fibromyalgia and other kinds of problems. I learned to take every single client as an individual case. And so I found that that's the best approach. Now, as far as seeing certain things in common with Lyme, yes, you'll find that the immune system is really low. If you're testing the immune system, you'll see that the immune system is low. But that's pretty similar with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue and really any other sort of named disease. And as far as organ imbalances, that can vary, but often you'll find liver and kidney imbalances, but it depends from person to person. So I still recommend that you take each client really as an individual. Okay, here's one from Marilyn. She says, I have not had luck with figuring out why my hair is thinner. My thyroid is balanced, or do women need to just accept this? Accepting is not acceptable for me. Yeah, well, yeah, me neither. I would test that. I would start looking at nutrients, see if there are any particular nutrients that might be that you might be needing. And your thyroid is balanced. I would ask. I would go back to your thyroid and I would ask if your thyroid is 100% happy. Okay, and if it says no, then there may be some room there, and it may not be your thyroid. There might be other reasons. So be open to that as well. Okay, now Sherry says that regarding ISOL, make sure that you muscle test as to how many drops. She says I usually do one or two. Okay, that's great advice. Sandra says, have you worked with people with seizures? Do you have question suggestions? Yeah, basically that same question that we asked back in the beginning of the call today. Is there an underlying imbalance that's contributing to these seizures, or yeah, that's basically how you could ask it, or to this problem that you're describing, or to, I hesitate to use the word your because it denotes ownership. So if you say to somebody, your seizures, then that puts a little bug in the subconscious mind that tends to want to retain and hang on to that thing because they've just been told that it's theirs, kind of like a little child wanting to hang on to a toy. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I would just ask, is there an underlying imbalance? Use the body code and then see what shows up. Okay, so here's one. This is from Steve. Can a strong or weak muscle test response indicate a strong or weak answer to the question? For example, when I do a sway test, sometimes I sway forward so fast I nearly fall over. Does this mean the response is a strong yes? Yeah, I think so. I mean, there can be a range of responses, and sometimes the response is really strong. Sure. So I think that's absolutely right. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, Jesse has a question. Jesse says, I'm working with a 35-year-old vet who called me from a psych hospital. Tried to commit suicide, hallucinates, feels entities take over parts of his body. I've been working with him for weeks with the emotion code and the body code. He's not crazy, as he's been labeled, but a very abused, damaged soul with a huge desire to step into life. Any advice to help him bring relief? Okay, well, and then there was another comment from Jesse. He says, he's very trusting. I've been doing healing work for almost 40 years, but feel as though I may be in a bit over my head, especially regarding the entity piece. Told him I'd ask you for help. Thanks, Jesse. A good question. It's not a bad idea sometimes to just get another opinion, or to have another practitioner maybe help you. So, Jesse, my advice to you, I think, would be to if you're working with this person locally, you might want to see if you can connect up with another practitioner and maybe work together on this person. If you're working on this person at a distance, then that actually becomes easier, because then you can go on to, for example, on Facebook and or onto Healer's Library, onto the Body Code forum, for example, and maybe ask for a little help there. Maybe ask for somebody to maybe work with you and do a session together with you, so that maybe the two of you, if you're doing it remotely, for example, the two of you could be maybe on the phone or on Skype together, and just see what shows up that way. So getting a little help that way and getting a little backup is not a bad idea.